I used to believe the loudest pains were the ones people could hear: shattered plates, slammed doors, the rattling sobs you choke on in the dark. But the night I signed the marriage contract with Phó Nghiên Chi, the silence screamed so fiercely it left permanent echoes inside my ribs. You know that hush, when every heartbeat is a judge's hammer, every pen stroke feels like selling a piece of your own skin. That was the moment my father's hospital bills, my mother's unanswered questions, and my kid brother's wide-eyed trust all piled onto the tiny line where my signature belonged. And so I wrote it, to Mac, curvy strokes that suddenly looked like shackles. He was sitting across from me, a man people whispered about but rarely understood. Tailored charcoal suit, watch as sleek as midnight water, expression unreadable except for the flicker in those onyx eyes when the lawyer slid the contract between us. Back then I only knew 3 facts about Phó Nghiên Chi. He headed Phoenix Pharm, he never lost a negotiation, and he needed a wife for reasons hidden behind his cool smile. I didn't ask why. Desperation steals the luxury of curiosity. He didn't offer. Instead, when the fountain pen slipped from my fingers afterward, he caught it before it hit the mahogany desk, steady, precise. "You'll get accustomed to our arrangement," he murmured, voice low enough that the chandelier almost swallowed it. Strange how a promise and a warning can sound identical. The days that followed blurred like raindrops on train windows. I moved into his penthouse, a forest of glass and marble perched above the city haze. We agreed on rules: public appearances on cue, private lives kept in parallel lanes, zero emotional entanglement. Simple. Surgical. Pain-free, in theory. Yet on the first morning, I found a porcelain bowl of jujube porridge warming on the counter with a post-it: breakfast is important before board meetings. It felt ridiculous that a sticky note could tighten my throat more than the hospital invoices ever did, but there it was, kindness wrapped in anonymity. I told myself it was strategy, everything he did had leverage hidden inside. Still, I finished every spoonful. Our first public engagement arrived sooner than I'd caught my breath, a charitable gala brimming with suits sharper than steak knives. Under the diamond lights, Phó Nghiên Chi's hand settled at the small of my back, firm enough to guide but gentle enough to suggest I could step away if I wanted. The cameras devoured the image: aloof CEO and blooming young wife, a tableau of cold power softened by rookie charm. I played the role, smiling until my cheeks trembled. He whispered stock prices and investor gossip like sweet nothings, and I laughed right on cue. It should have been pure performance. Then I noticed how his shoulders tensed whenever reporters crowded too near, the subtle pivot of his body shielding me from stray elbows and intrusive lenses. Protection was not in the contract. My heart, traitorous, foolish, took note anyway. The gala also introduced the first hairline crack in our masquerade: Chunatuette. Imagine red silk stitched into human form, confidence dripping from manicured fingertips. She cornered me at the dessert bar, swirling champagne as if stirring up storms. A scholarship girl turned Mrs. Phó, how thoroughly modern, she purred, eyes slicing. Do remember, borrowed halos must be returned clean. I matched her smile even while ice prickled my spine. Later I learned she was the marketing queen of Phoenix Pharm, and Phó Nghiên Chi's high school sweetheart, at least in her own retelling of history. The way she said Mrs. Phó felt like pinning a target on my dress. Rumors brewed fast. Office corridors buzzed that I'd seduced him for money, that my family's debts were a fabricated sob story, that I was pregnant. Pick your scandal, they served them all. None hurt as much as the one headline I stumbled upon at 3 a.m., mystery bride or corporate pawn? The family's tragic past resurfaces. The article dredged up my mother's unsolved hit and run, painting it as tabloid fodder. I slammed the laptop shut, knuckles white. That night, while city sirens yelled outside, I found myself in the penthouse library staring at rows of medical texts and trade journals. Phó Nghiên Chi walked in, tie loosened, the scent of rain clinging to him. Couldn't sleep, he asked. Your PR team missed a rumor. I tried to sound flippant but my voice wavered. They forgot to accuse me of murder. Something raw flashed across his features, gone in a blink. He stepped closer, as if orbiting a silent plea for permission, then placed a folder on the desk between us. Read this. Inside lay a private investigation file thicker than any gossip rag, traffic cam footage, lab forensics, transcripts of witness retractions. My mother's case, every ugly shard of it. I reopened it months ago, he said, fingers brushing the file's edge. Before I approached you. I wanted facts, not speculation. Heat surged behind my eyes. Why? He exhaled, gaze steady, unguarded for the first time since we met. Because the day the police called your family a dead end, someone at Phoenix Pharm buried a competing drug patent. Those two events occurred within an hour of each other. And just like that, the contract marriage shifted tectonic plates beneath our feet. It was no longer a business arrangement. It was a conspiracy with bloodstains, and he was tying our fates together not merely for corporate optics but to exhume a truth that could burn empires. The next week spiraled, board meetings laced with tension, secret phone calls at dawn, coded emails hidden in clinical trial data. I learned to read danger lines in the tilt of Phó Nghiên Chi's jaw, in the curt nods he traded with his childhood friend and legal counsel, Lu Dong. Meanwhile, jujube intensified her chess game, leaking strategic reports to competitors and planting whispers about my mother's reputation. Every move felt like dancing across glass. Yet through it all, he kept placing that bowl of jujube porridge on the counter each morning, even on days I left for lab audits at 5. Sometimes a second bowl appeared beside it, his own, half-eaten because he was already rushing to extinguish another fire. That half-finished breakfast said more than any bouquet ever could, I'm fighting too, even if the battle started long before you signed your name. Then came the Pharmaceutical Innovation Contest, an annual battleground where biotech giants flexed research muscles in front of global investors. Phoenix Pharm's entry, Project Aurora, was a regenerative compound he'd shepherded for 2 years, the same timeline that paralleled my mother's hidden autopsy results, traces of an unapproved stimulant eerily close to Aurora's precursor formula. Coincidence? Not in this universe. We arrived at the conference wearing matching lanyards, husband and wife on the surface, covert allies beneath. The auditorium lights burned hot, cameras rolled. During the keynote, Phó Nghiên Chi's cousin and acting COO, announced a sudden pivot. Phoenix Pharm would withdraw Aurora and merge with a rival drug developed by Horizon Labs, a company secretly bankrolled by jujube. Gasps rippled through the room. My pulse thundered. This wasn't a pivot, it was a hostile hijack. Seconds later, security stormed the stage, whispering into Phó Nghiên ear. A hush fell. On the giant screen behind him appeared security cam footage, time-stamped the night my mother died, showing a sleek car registered to Horizon Labs speeding away from the accident site. Overlaying that was a digital watermark, courtesy of Mrs. Tamac. I hadn't leaked it, Lu Dong had, timing the drop to derail their power grab. But as those images froze across the auditorium, every spotlight swung toward me. Phó Nghiên recovered first, smirking. What a tender family reunion, he drawled. Too bad evidence can be forged. Phó Nghiên Chi stepped forward, microphone cold in his hand. Then let's invite forensic auditors, now. Transparency is the backbone of science. His voice sliced clean through the swelling chaos, through my terror, through the decades-old veil over my mother's death. In that instant, I realized I trusted him more than I trusted my own heartbeat. Investors murmured, journalists scrambled, the contest dissolved into a tribunal. Hours later, in a glass-walled back office, we waited for digital verification. I tried to steady my breathing, counting the slow rise and fall of his shoulders beside me. When the forensic team confirmed the video's authenticity, vindication tasted metallic on my tongue. But victory had teeth. Jujube was escorted out in handcuffs, while Phó Nghiên vanished before authorities arrived. Phoenix Pharm's stock plummeted, rallies of flashing red tickers. Truth always demands repayment. The board demanded an emergency vote to oust Nghiên Chi for reputation damage. I watched him stand in suit sleeves rolled, hair disheveled, yet eyes blazing with something fiercer than fear, resolve. When they asked him to relinquish his seat, he simply said, "You can take my title, not my conscience." I didn't plan it, didn't script it, but my fingers laced with his right there at the conference table. My voice found steel I never knew it possessed, then fire me too, because my conscience stands with his. Silence. Then Lu Dong placed her badge beside ours. One by one, junior scientists, a wave of white lab coats, crossed the threshold and followed suit. In mutiny, there is a certain electricity. It hummed through that room like a second heartbeat, louder than the first. We lost the vote yet walked out taller. Outside, reporters thronged, but all I heard was rain starting up above the skyscrapers, drumming steady. He turned to me, rainwater slipping down the edge of his jaw. "The contract ends today, if you wish," he said, almost apologetic, as though offering me a life raft off a sinking ship. I shook my head. Today it finally means something. Lightning flashed, camera shutters followed, but none captured the exact moment his hand cupped my cheek, warm despite the cold November drizzle. No grand confession, just a whisper, "Thank you for wrecking my perfect plan." And just like that, the boundaries between business and heartbeat disappeared. What came next was the real storm, tracking down Pho Hana's offshore accounts, testifying in court against Horizon Labs, and rebuilding Phoenix Pharm under a new board aligned with transparent ethics. But looking back, the fiercest battle wasn't waged in courtrooms or shareholder meetings, it was fought in the quiet corridors of doubt inside me and inside him. Somewhere between jujube porridge and shared rebellion, affection sprouted roots deeper than any contract clause. Months later, long after the verdict cleared my mother's name and Horizon Labs collapsed under fraud charges, invitations printed in ivory and gold announced our wedding. No pretense this time. At the ceremony, my father walked me down an aisle lined with blooming winter jasmine, flowers my mother loved. When Phó Nghiên Chi's fingers met mine at the altar, I thought of that first silent night, of signatures that felt like chains. And I realized the most spectacular metamorphosis isn't from poverty to wealth or stranger to spouse, it's from survival pact to chosen love. He vowed forever in a voice steady as the dawn. I answered in kind, and the world, at least the slice of it that mattered, finally fell quiet in the best possible way. Because this time, the silence wasn't screaming, it was breathing.